Hello Maxky Movies Recaps. The movie begins with a montage of scenes from a Saturday morning in the home of Miami-based waitress Jess, who is a single mother with her son, Tommy, on the autism spectrum. Tommy is crying and Jess comforts him, explaining that he had a nightmare. Jess picks up Tommy's toy from the pool, and he is painting his coloring book in the kitchen. Jess sweeping up spilled paint spills, staining her floral dress, and ringing the bell to her front door, but no one is there. Jess, dressed in a white top and jean shorts, packs a duffel bag with her clothes and heads to Florida Harbor to meet her friend Greg. She loads the bag in her car with great effort, as if it had something heavy inside. The mother and son make their way to Florida Harbor, where a private yacht named the Triangle is waiting for them. In this story, the yacht's owner Greg organizes a small trip to the sea for his friends, including Jess. The first people to arrive at the harbor are Sally, her husband Downey, and their friend Heather. Greg's onboard helper Victor arrives, followed by Jess. The captain tells Jess that they can cancel the trip if she doesn't want to go, but she insists on taking the voyage. Jess falls asleep in the cabin, experiencing a dream where she sees herself being washed up on a shore. Heather arrives in the cabin, wakes her up, and they share a glass of champagne. As the storm hits the yacht, the crew huddles in the cabin with life jackets on, and the yacht overturns, causing Heather to drown in the water. The 5 passengers are stranded on the overturned yacht, but a large cruise ship named Eolus floats into their view. Downey notices the silhouette of someone looking at them from the deck and waves enthusiastically. They climb on board, and as they move through the desolate corridors, it seems like there's no one on the ship. Jess gets a feeling of déjà vu, as if she had previously seen these corridors. Downey diverts their attention to an old framed picture in the corridor, which says the ship, Eolus, was constructed in 1932 and explains the Greek mythology behind its name. Jess finds a keyring with 2 separate keys and a picture of a young boy, which confuses her, and she swears she had the keys when she boarded the yacht. The 5 stumble into a ballroom with neatly arranged food, and Jess sees the reflection of someone in the mirror and alerts the others. Victor immediately goes in search of this mysterious person. Jess and Greg leave to find the captain of the ship, asking Sally and Downey to wait in the ballroom for Victor. As Jess and Greg walk past the deserted corridor, they hear a message written in blood: "Go to theater." Greg dismisses the message as prank by the ship's crew, but Jess is thoroughly spooked. Jess returns to the ballroom while Greg heads towards the theater. Upon her arrival, she is shocked to find Downey and Sally missing. Suddenly, a bloodied Victor appears and attempts to strangle her. Jess notices a wound on Victor's head and presses on it, causing him to pass out from the pain. As she processes the situation, a gunshot rings out, prompting her to flee to the theater. Inside, she discovers Greg with a severe bullet wound and is accused by Sally and Downey of the crime. They claim Greg accused her before his death and question her about summoning them to the theater. Confused, Jess denies any involvement, but before she can explain further, a mysterious masked figure begins shooting at them from the theater's upper gallery, killing Sally and Downey. Jess grabs an emergency axe hanging on the ship's wall and surprisingly overpowers the murderer. With no bullets left in the gun, the masked figure mutters, "It's the only way to get home," and then repeats the phrase, "Kill them." But Jess ignores these words and takes a big swing with her axe, causing the killer to fall off the ship, making her the lone survivor of this bizarre event. In the story of Eolus, Jess witnesses 5 stranded people on an upturned yacht near the ship. These people are Greg, Victor, Sally, Downey, and herself. The new group boards the ship, and everything happens as it had happened before. Survivor Jess spies on the newly boarded Jess, who is hit with feelings of déjà vu. Later, she accidentally drops her keyring and flees before anyone catches her. Victor finds the keyring and the photo of Tommy attached to it. Survivor Jess goes to the ballroom and hides behind a pillar. Once again, the group arrives, and new Jess catches a glimpse of her in the mirror. Scared, she runs away, but the new Victor finds her on the deck. Survivor Jess reveals that there is a copy of herself downstairs in the ballroom and that they are all going to die. As the conversation between the two becomes intense, Victor backs up towards the deck's wall and accidentally crashes his head against 2 sharp pins. The impact causes a deadly gash on the back of his head. This freaks survivor Jess out, so she runs towards the engine room of the ship. There, she finds the crew uniform, shotguns, and ammunition. By this time, she realizes that the events that previously happened are repeating themselves. Hence, there will be someone who will shoot the new Sally and new Downey in the theater. Survivor Jess then encounters her other self, making her run away in shock. She stops her from accidentally killing Victor, but Victor seems to have lost too much blood and passes away on the floor of the ballroom. By the time Survivor Jess reaches the theater, Greg is already dead, but Sally and Downey are still alive. The masked killer also shows up at the balcony and shoots at her. Sally, Downey, and Survivor Jess run away from the theater to an empty corridor. She gives the gun to Downey and runs off to the ballroom where new Victor had passed out moments ago. However, his body is not there, and the blood trail on the floor indicates that he was dragged outside and thrown overboard. Downey notices someone approaching them from the other end of the corridor and shoots a few warning shots. Unbeknownst to him, the killer takes off the mask and reveals herself as another version of Jess. There are 3 versions of Jess on the ship: the Survivor Jess, the new Jess, and the Killer Jess. Killer Jess persuades the husband and wife to follow her, taking them to room 237, where she brutally slashes Downey's throat with a knife and stabs Sally in the stomach. Sally manages to slip away from the room and sends a desperate message for help to another version of Greg, whose yacht is yet to be overturned by the storm. Sally hears footsteps following her and rushes away on the uppermost deck, where she witnesses the fight between the new Jess and the unmasked, murderous Jess. The killer is thrown off the ship, and another group of 5 stranded passengers arrive near the ship, causing a new cycle to start. The original Jess, now known as the Survivor Jess, is destined to become the masked killer until she can stop the 5 stranded passengers from coming on board Eolus. The original Jess finds the corpse of Downey and throws it into the sea, using his blood to write "Go to Theater" in the mirror of room 237. She then visits the latest version of Downey and Sally and tells them to go to the theater. She wears the crew uniform, dons a mask with 2 eye holes, and carries a shotgun. The events repeat itself as the masked Jess fights it out with the latest version of Jess on the deck outside. The original Jess, still behind a mask, is out of bullets and mutters, "It's the only way to save our son. You have to kill them." Before falling to the sea, she finds her way home from the beach. In the story, Jess is a mother who has been a terrible mother to her son Tommy. She yells at him for leaving a toy ship in the pool and curses him. The original Jess feels guilty for her actions and sneaks into her home, where she finds Tommy painting in the kitchen. He gets spooked and drops paint on the floor. Jess slaps Tommy and tells him to go to his room, cleaning the paint that also stains her floral dress. The original Jess comes up with a plan to kill herself using a hammer, but Tommy watches it all go down from a distance. She packs her clothes and the corpse in a large duffel bag and gets into a car with Tommy. As they drive towards the harbor, a seagull crashes into the car's windshield, creating a splash of blood on it. Jess stops the car, takes the dead bird, and throws it on the beach. To her horror, she sees a pile of dead seagulls thrown at the exact spot, indicating she is still stuck in an infinite loop. As Jess drives, Tommy screams at the blood on the windshield. The car veers slightly and gets bumped against an oncoming truck, which crashes several meters away in the middle of the road. The dead bodies of Jess and Tommy lie on the floor, but the dead Jess is wearing a floral dress with paint stains on it, indicating that it was the version killed by the hammer. Jess is miraculously unscathed but looks shaken by the crash. No one notices her except for a local taxi driver who tells her that there is nothing she can do to save Tommy. Reluctantly, Jess asks him to take her to the Florida harbor. Thanks for subscribe.